Rain streaked down the kitchen window, dragging lines like tears across the glass. Nora stood barefoot on the cold tile, fingers curled around a chipped porcelain cup. It had once been part of a wedding set, ivory with little painted ivy leaves. Now it was the only one left. The rest had broken slowly, one by one, over the years. But the marriage had held. Or so she told herself. Sam was late again. It was 8:17 p.m., and the dinner she'd cooked sat untouched on the stove, chicken marsala, his favorite, not that he'd notice anymore. The wine, a dry red she'd bought that afternoon, waited on the counter with 2 glasses. Only one had been poured. She didn't feel angry. Not really. Not like she used to. Now it was more like the way light dies at dusk, inevitable, slow, unnoticed until it's gone. The phone buzzed. She knew it was him before she picked it up. Running late. Don't wait. Sorry. No punctuation. No warmth. Just like the last 5 texts. Nora set the cup down too hard. It cracked. She stared at it for a long time. It felt like a metaphor, one she didn't have the energy to unravel. And that's when she noticed it. The second glass. The one Sam never used anymore. He'd stopped drinking months ago. A resolution he'd actually kept. But someone had taken it down. There was a smudge on the rim. Her heart didn't race. Her breath didn't catch. This wasn't a movie, and she wasn't a heroine. Instead, she felt a strange calm, as if the world had finally aligned with the suspicion she'd stopped acknowledging. Someone had been here, and not her. It wasn't the lipstick smear that gave it away. It was the lemon rind in the sink. She used lemon in her tea. Sam didn't. Neither did she. That night, she slept on the couch. When Sam finally got home, smelling faintly of clove and guilt, he didn't ask why. When they bought the house, there had been a crooked lemon tree in the backyard. It was one of the things that sold Nora on it. Sam had wanted a sleek condo closer to the city, but she'd seen the little yellow fruits drooping from those thorny branches and fallen in love. You'll kill it, he said when she promised to take care of it. She laughed. I'll learn. She didn't kill it. She nurtured it. It grew tall, a bit wild, just like she did in those first few years. She made lemonade in the summers, lemon curd in the fall, lemon slices dried and hung from the Christmas tree. But the last time she plucked a lemon was nearly a year ago. The tree still grew. She just stopped going outside. The next morning, Sam was gone before she woke up. She expected as much. He'd been leaving earlier every day, some phantom client meeting always scheduled, first thing. Once, that used to worry her. Now she felt grateful not to see him. Grateful for the silence. There was less pretending to do. But the smudge on the wine glass haunted her. She washed it 3 times. Still, she could see it. Lipstick, a pale pink, barely there. Nora didn't own lipstick. Not anymore. And the lemon? That bothered her more. She walked into the backyard barefoot, the cold dew sinking into the arches of her feet. The lemon tree stood slightly tilted, branches bare except for 2 lemons high up. One of them was missing a little chunk, as if someone had picked it and changed their mind. Or maybe they had come for just the rind. She turned slowly, eyes scanning the fence line. Their neighbors were quiet, retired. No one watched. No one ever did. Inside, she stood over the kitchen sink, holding the evidence in her hand. The lemon rind had dried at the edge, like it had been there for hours. She peeled it from the steel drain with tweezers, slipped it into a sandwich bag, and tucked it into the bottom of the freezer behind a bag of peas. Sam never ate peas. At 6:04 p.m., the door opened. Hey, he said, not looking at her. Traffic was... Who drinks tea with lemon? She asked. He stopped mid-step, his keys dangling from his hand. I don't know. Why? I found a lemon rind in the sink. You don't drink tea with lemon. Neither do I. He blinked, mouth opening just slightly, then closing again. Maybe it's from a few days ago. No. It was fresh yesterday. Nora, come on. It's a lemon. What are you implying? Nothing, she said. Yet. He didn't respond. He disappeared into the bathroom for 20 minutes, longer than usual. When he returned, he kissed her cheek absently and said, Let's not start another fight, okay? She nodded. But her eyes followed him, quiet and sharp. That night, she didn't sleep. Instead, she waited until he began snoring, then crept to his jacket, searching the pockets. She found a receipt. Café Lila, 2 teas, 1 chamomile, 1 Earl Grey. Add lemon. For 32 p.m. Nora didn't drink tea. But someone did. Café Lila sat on the edge of a cobbled alley, hidden from the main road, its lavender-painted door barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. Nora had never been there. but the name on the receipt stuck like a thorn behind her ribs. Saturday morning, Sam claimed he was going to the gym. "You're still doing that early class?" she asked casually, watching him lace his sneakers. "Yeah, keeps me sane." She nodded, smiling at him in that careful, practiced way. "You look great." It was true, annoyingly so. He'd started running again, lost weight, cut back on beer. His skin had a glow to it, something almost smug. At first, she thought it was about control, midlife vanity. Maybe. But now, she wondered if it was something else entirely. Someone else. As soon as the front door shut behind him, she grabbed her keys. Café Lilo was exactly what she expected, quaint, with mismatched chairs and a sleepy golden retriever curled under the counter. Nora stepped inside, her coat still damp from the morning drizzle. A warm gust of espresso and cardamom hit her. A barista with a half-shaved head smiled. "Hey there. First time?" Nora nodded. "I was actually hoping to ask about something. Odd, I guess." "Shoot." She pulled out her phone, tapped the image of the receipt she'd taken last night. "Do you remember this order?" "2 teas, one with lemon, around 4:30 on Thursday." The barista leaned forward, squinting. "Thursday? Oh, yeah. That was the couple sitting by the window. The guy was in a suit. The woman had this red coat with, like, these huge buttons. Stylish. They were regulars last month, but haven't seen them together in a while." Nora's fingers stiffened around her phone. "They come here often?" "Used to. Like, every week. I remember them 'cause they always got the same thing. Tea and lemon." The barista grinned. "Kind of old-fashioned." Nora's lips twitched upward. "Yeah, old-fashioned." She ordered an espresso she didn't want, just to stay a little longer. As she sat in the window seat, she stared out into the street where the rain had slowed to a mist. Across from her, an old man read a newspaper. A toddler tugged at her mother's coat. And then she saw it. A flash of red. A woman in a cherry-red coat stepped onto the sidewalk, a coat with large, gold-rimmed buttons. She looked left, then crossed the street quickly, ducking into a bakery. Nora's legs moved before her brain did. She left the espresso steaming on the table and stepped out into the cold. She followed the woman at a distance, her heart loud but steady. Not fear. Not jealousy. Curiosity, sharp and dangerous. Like a match being held too close to a fuse. The woman bought 2 croissants, tucked them into a bag, and walked east. No ring on her finger. No umbrella. Her dark hair was twisted up in a way that felt too elegant for errands. And then she turned a corner and disappeared into an apartment building. Nora waited across the street for 10 minutes. Long enough to see the window light flicker on. Long enough to wonder if Sam's gym had elliptical machines shaped like croissants. She took a photo of the building, just in case. Back home, Sam was already in the shower. His hair was wet when he stepped into the kitchen. He kissed her cheek, warm and smiling. "I missed you," he said, like he meant it. And maybe, in some twisted way, he did. The photo Nora had taken of the apartment building stayed open on her phone the rest of the evening. She zoomed in, then out. Looked for signs. A mailbox nameplate. A window decoration. Anything. But there was nothing. That night, as Sam drifted into sleep beside her, Nora stared at the ceiling and tried to imagine the woman's voice. Was it soft? Smoky? Did she laugh with her whole mouth? Or just that tight, flirty exhale women give when they already know they've won? She imagined her fingers, long, painted. Not chipped like Nora's. Her posture, graceful, confident, with none of the quiet hesitations that had crept into Nora's every movement. For the first time in months, she felt something that wasn't just sadness or numb routine. She felt angry. But it wasn't directed at the woman in the red coat. It was at herself. She had noticed the shift months ago. The way Sam flinched when she brushed his arm. The way his phone never left his side anymore. The absences, the vague smiles. He was growing in a direction she couldn't reach anymore, and she had done nothing. Until now. The next morning, while he was in the shower again, she slipped his phone from the dresser. The passcode had never changed, her birthday. That felt like an insult now. She didn't go to the messages. That would be obvious. Instead, she opened the calendar. Tuesday, 3:15 p.m. L. Friday, 4 p.m. L. Just a single initial. She opened one. The location field was empty. But the time? It matched the cafe receipt. L. Lemon tea. Red coat. Lies. Nora took a deep breath and backed out of the app. She opened the map's history. One address repeated 3 times in the past 2 weeks. 122 Crane Street. She Googled it. The same apartment building. And then, As if the universe wanted to twist the knife just a little more, the doorbell rang. She flinched. Sam was still in the bathroom. She padded barefoot to the door and cracked it open. There, standing under the awning with a brown paper envelope in hand, was the woman in the red coat. Her eyes were blue, not the timid kind. Sharp, deliberate. She had a small scar just above her left eyebrow. She looked calm. "Hi," she said, as if they'd met before. Nora couldn't speak. Her throat dried instantly. "I didn't expect you to answer." The woman glanced past her shoulder, eyes scanning the hall. "Is he here?" Nora said nothing. She stepped outside and shut the door behind her. "Who are you?" she asked, voice low. "I think you know," the woman replied. Nora looked at the envelope. "Is that for him?" "No," she said. "It's for you." She held it out. Nora didn't take it. "Why would you come here?" "Because I'm not who you think I am. And neither is he." Nora took the envelope. It was heavy. The woman turned and walked down the path without another word, her heels clicking like a metronome, echoing in Nora's bones. Inside, Sam was still whistling in the shower. Nora opened the envelope. Inside were 6 photos. Sam, and the woman, in a car, at Café Lila, on the street near the apartment. In one, he was kissing her neck. In another, he was crying. And in the last, she was handing him a folder, the label visible. Therapy, Session 6. Nora stared at it. Her stomach twisted. The woman in red wasn't his lover. She was his therapist. And now, she had come to warn her. The photos lay on the kitchen table like evidence at a trial. Nora sat across from them, a mug of untouched coffee in her hands. The folder labeled Therapy, Session 6 was thick. It didn't have her name on it, but somehow it felt like it belonged to her more than to him. She hadn't told Sam the woman had come. Not yet. He'd left for work as if the morning was any other. Kissed her cheek. Smiled. Asked her to water the lemon tree if she had a minute. The same tree she hadn't touched in a year. The one whose fruit had given everything away. When the door shut behind him, she waited exactly 23 seconds before opening the folder. The first page was a cover sheet. Client, Samuel W. Lorne. Date, Session number 6, March 17th. Therapist, Dr. Layla Hart. Layla. L. Nora's stomach clenched. She flipped through. The notes were handwritten and neat, looping cursive, not clinical. The words weren't cold. They were personal. Human. Someone had been listening to Sam. Really listening. Client arrived 7 minutes early. Appeared anxious but composed. Eyes red, likely from crying. No physical signs of injury. Subject opened immediately with the following statement. "I think I'm disappearing. Not from the world, but from her. From Nora." Nora froze. He expresses guilt for hiding his emotional collapse. States he has been experiencing detachment, fantasizing about escape. Not in a romantic sense, he repeatedly clarifies this, but in the form of vanishing. A life elsewhere. "Sometimes I sit in my car outside work and just don't go in." He does not blame Nora. Calls her the most honest person I've ever known. But he says he can't breathe in the house anymore. The room went very quiet. Nora didn't cry. Not yet. She read the rest. The next page had a timeline. Sam had started therapy 4 months ago, around the time they'd stopped touching each other in bed. Around the time she stopped asking him where he went. Around the time she found herself eating dinner alone most nights. He'd been coming home hollow. She thought it was another woman. It was the truth. Subject notes a recurring dream. He's in the house, but all the furniture is covered in white sheets. He can hear Nora laughing in another room, but can't find her. The windows are locked from the outside. She stared at the sentence. Locked from the outside. Had she done that? Had she been part of the lock? The last page was a summary, written like a letter. It wasn't meant for her. And yet, Sam is not hiding infidelity. He is hiding shame. He believes he has failed Nora, and in doing so, has turned her into a mirror he can't look into. He needs to confess something, but not an affair. Something from years ago. Something involving the house. Nora closed the folder. The house. Their house. Her mind flashed to the second bedroom, always locked. The room that had become storage, that neither of them entered anymore. Boxes, old photo frames, forgotten furniture. But also, a memory of Sam standing in that room, years ago, holding something she couldn't see. And crying. He told her it was the dust. That he'd found his father's old cufflinks and it had brought back memories. She had believed him. But what if that wasn't it? She stared at the folder again. It was no longer a question of if Sam had secrets. Now, it was a question of what he had buried, and whether she was ready to dig it up. The room had been sealed for years. Nora stood outside it now, her hand resting on the doorknob, a skeleton key in her palm. She'd found it taped under the kitchen drawer, exactly where Sam used to hide things he didn't want her to see: old birthday cards from exes, a box of cigarettes he never admitted to smoking. She hadn't entered this room since the spring they moved in. They were supposed to make it a nursery. But that spring ended in silence, in a pain she'd buried so deep, it didn't feel real anymore. She turned the key. The door creaked open, air-stale and still. Boxes lined the walls. Dust veiled everything. A rocking chair sat in the corner, untouched. Nora stepped inside, her breath catching, not from dust, but from the ache that came with memories. On a shelf near the window sat a photo frame, face down. She lifted it. A sonogram. The baby they never had. She blinked, tears forming. Next to it was a shoebox. Inside, a hospital bracelet. A card from the maternity ward. And tucked beneath it, a folded letter addressed to her, in Sam's handwriting. For when I'm too much of a coward to say it out loud. Her hands trembled as she opened it. I never told you everything about that day. About the bleeding, the ambulance, the hours I spent outside the OR. I made a decision. One the doctor gave me. They could try to save both of you, or just you. I chose you. Her knees buckled. She sat on the floor. I never forgave myself. Not for the choice, but for never telling you. I thought I could live with the secret. I thought if I gave you the house, the tree, the quiet, maybe it would be enough. But you knew. You always knew something died with him. And it wasn't just the baby. Nora pressed the letter to her chest. She wasn't angry. She was drowning in the thing that had stood between them all these years. Grief, unspoken, twisted into silence. He hadn't cheated. He had been haunted. And now, so was she. That night, Nora didn't speak a word to Sam. She made dinner, lit candles, even smiled. But it was all theater, silent, elegant, cruel. Sam looked at her like he felt the chill, like some instinct told him the ground beneath his life had cracked just slightly. He tried to touch her wrist as she passed the plates. She flinched, and then caught herself. Don't show it yet. Later, when he slept, so easily, as if he hadn't written her a confession he never meant her to read, she lay beside him with eyes wide open, the letter under her pillow. She had read it 3 times now, memorized it, and she didn't know how to feel. Part of her wanted to forgive him. Another part wanted to scream, not because of his choice, but because he'd left her alone in that grief. He had built a wall of silence around the most painful moment of their lives and let her mourn a mystery. She wasn't angry at what he did. She was furious at what he didn't. The next morning, she packed a small bag. She didn't leave a note. No dramatic exit. Just keys on the counter. Her phone left on silent. She drove to the coast. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere with wind and salt and space. By sunset, she was barefoot on a rocky beach, letting the sea numb her thoughts. When her phone buzzed, 5 missed calls from Sam, she let it ring. And then another came in. Dr. Layla Hart. She answered. The voice on the other end was steady. Nora, I wasn't sure you'd pick up. Silence. Then, you knew I'd find that letter. Yes, Layla replied. I hoped you would. Why? Nora asked. Why get involved? Because I've spent weeks helping him dig through shame, Layla said. But I realized, you've been buried too. And no one's helped you. Nora's breath caught. Layla continued. He's not the only one who lost something. You lost a child. And then a husband who went quiet. And no one asked you if you were okay. Nora stared at the horizon. I'm not, she whispered. I know, Layla said gently. But you could be. Nora closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt something shift. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe. A beginning. Nora returned on a Sunday. The house was exactly as she left it, quiet, dim, the lemon tree visible through the back window like a silent witness. She unlocked the door slowly, the same way someone might open a casket they weren't ready to look inside. Sam was sitting on the couch, a half-finished mug of coffee in his hands, eyes bloodshot. He didn't stand. He just said, You read it. Nora nodded. He looked smaller somehow, sunken in his hoodie, like something vital had been scraped out of him. I wanted to tell you, he whispered. But you didn't. I couldn't. Every time I tried, I looked at you and just couldn't. Because you didn't want to hurt me? She asked, stepping inside. He shook his head. Because I already had. I just didn't want to watch it happen again. Nora stayed near the door. She wasn't sure if she was ready to sit next to him. Not yet. You let me believe it was my fault, she said, voice calm, but edged. You let me think I was broken. His head dropped. I know, he said. I know. They were quiet for a long moment. Then he added, I saw you change. You stopped smiling when you cooked. You started folding towels like they were glass. And I knew. You were grieving alone. Why didn't you just tell me the truth? He looked up, eyes wet. Because if I did, then the grief would become real. And I couldn't handle both of us breaking at the same time. That hit her hard. Not because it was cruel, but because it was honest. She stepped closer, finally. Did you love him? She asked quietly. Sam's eyes widened. Of course. And me. He stood slowly, walked until there was just a foot of space between them. I never stopped. That's the worst part. I loved you through every lie, through every ache. I thought I was protecting you. She looked at him for a long time. Her chest was tight, her throat dry. Finally, she said, you weren't protecting me. You were protecting your version of me, the one who wouldn't ask questions. I know, he whispered. Nora took a shaky breath. I don't know if I can forgive you. Not yet. He nodded, eyes brimming. I don't deserve it. But I'll wait. She turned toward the kitchen, her voice soft. Then start by throwing out that cracked porcelain cup. It's the only thing left in this house still pretending to be whole. The cup was gone. By Monday morning, the chipped porcelain one that had lived too long in the back of the cabinet was no longer in the house. Nora didn't ask what he'd done with it. She just noticed the space it left behind. Somehow, that empty shelf meant more than any apology. They moved like strangers for the next few days. Quiet, deliberate. Not cold, just cautious. There were no more lies between them now. But truth, she was learning, could bruise just as deeply. They didn't touch. Didn't rush. They spoke only when it mattered. But then one evening, she found herself beside him on the back porch, both sipping hot tea, his with honey, hers without. No lemon. The lemon tree stood just beyond the steps, crooked and defiant, still bearing 2 fruits. Neither of them had picked them. Sam spoke first. I made an appointment, he said. She looked at him. With Layla. He nodded. For both of us. Nora blinked. Couples therapy? No, he said, then clarified. Not yet. For you. If you want. She stared into her tea. The steam rose in delicate curls. Do you think I need fixing? She asked, a touch of sharpness still in her. Sam shook his head. No. I think you need someone to carry some of this weight. And maybe someone who isn't me. She didn't reply, but she didn't walk away either. That night, she found herself sitting on the nursery floor again. Not crying. Just sitting. The sonogram was still on the shelf. The rocking chair had a small tear she'd never noticed before. She whispered into the quiet. I didn't name you. We didn't get that far. The walls didn't answer. But her heart did. She felt it open, just slightly, like a door cracked in a long-locked room. Later, Sam found her curled on the couch under a blanket. He didn't speak. He simply sat on the floor beside her, resting his head gently against her knee. They stayed like that for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was hoarse but steady. I don't want to pretend anymore. I don't want that either, he said softly. I want honesty. And space. And slow, uncomfortable healing. Sam nodded. That's all I have left to offer. Nora closed her eyes. It wasn't everything, but it was a beginning. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel like the house had 2 shadows. Just one. And it was finally hers to walk through. Spring came late that year. The lemon tree bloomed again, tentative, stubborn. The frost had nearly killed it, but somehow its branches clung to life. Nora watched the first white blossom open one morning from the kitchen window, a mug of tea in her hand. No lemon. Just mint this time. Sam had moved into the guest room by then. His choice, gently made. No drama. No distance. Just space. Space for her to breathe, to think, to unlearn the rhythm of silence they'd both mastered too well. They still shared breakfast most days. Still passed each other the newspaper. But the air was different. Lighter. Fragile. Real. Grief was no longer a ghost between them. It had a name now. A room. A story. She attended her first therapy session alone. Dr. Hart didn't ask her to talk about Sam. Or the baby. Or the letter. Not right away. Instead, she asked about Nora, about who she was before the house, before the shadows. It had been so long since someone asked that, Nora didn't have an answer. But slowly, piece by piece, she began to remember. She painted again. In the garage, with the door open to let in the sun. Not landscapes or portraits, but shapes, raw, imperfect, angry colors that dripped without apology. Sam never interrupted her when she painted. One afternoon, he came home to find one of her pieces hanging above the mantel. Bold strokes. A smear of yellow and gray. "You're putting them up?" he asked. "I'm trying not to hide anymore," she said. And he smiled, not out of pride, but recognition. They weren't back together. Not in the old sense. But they were something new now. Two people trying, without pretending. They still shared the house, but no longer the same silences. One night, she stood in the backyard under a sky thick with stars. Sam joined her, handing her a blanket. She draped it over her shoulders and leaned slightly, just slightly, into him. Not as a wife returning to a marriage, but as a woman deciding, slowly, what she could forgive, and what she would never forget. Because some love stories don't end. They change shape. And sometimes, what breaks between two people isn't the love itself, but the version of themselves they were trying to protect. Now, they were building something quieter. No secrets. No shadows. Just two cups in the cabinet. And a lemon tree, still blooming, against all odds.